Hey, everybody.
Hey, everybody.
Welcome to another Tuesday night dating God's way. Y'all come on and jump on here.
Dating God's way. Dating God's way.
Y'all time to get in here. Come and let's have a chat, a little topic, a little chat topic about something. I can't rap, so I don't know why I'm trying. Hey, Forsake.
God's way. God's way.
God's way, dating God's way.
God's way.
Share, and share alike.
Hey, y'all, welcome. Come on in.
Come on in. Come on in. Come on in.
God's way. Yeah.
Hey,
Hey, y'all.
I'd say y'all in the
Yeah.
studio. I see y'all chatting with us.
Yes. Hey, y'all. Welcome. Hey, y'all.
Hey,
Hey.
y'all.
Hey, y'all.
Hey,
Hey, coming on in. Hey.
come on in here.
Come on in.
I would like to thank all of our new viewers, those that are is like my
Yes.
age as we go along these past few weeks, this whole past year actually. We
Yeah.
have new likes. Just welcome,
Woo.
welcome to Dating God's Way page.
Yes.
Yeah, yes. If you don't know, hey, Mom Vanessa, hey,
Hey.
Shell in the house, Yvette in the house, Kanishiwa. For you all that don't know, that Pastor E and I, we have been married some 20 years now, and we like to share dating advice or dating advice for those that are dating and for those that are married. So we like to share nuggets, especially out of the Word of God. And so,
Yeah. Godly perspective.
perspective on dating. And so our hot topic tonight, as Pastor E is showing you a graphic, is who comes first? Is it the wife? Is it the mom? Is it the baby mama? Or the mother of your child? I do not like baby mama for some reason.
Woo.
Is it the mother of your child? Is it the daughter? Or is it the flip? Is it the husband? Is it the pops or the dad? Or is it the father of the child?
Well,
Um,
those are not even questions, Pastor Will, because the question that people asking, this question is really being posed to men tonight about who comes first,
whew,
because the man is the head from a biblical perspective. So this question tonight is really being posed about who a man should put first. That's what we're really talking about tonight. His wife, his mother, his baby mother, or his child. That's what we're talking about tonight. Who comes first?
interesting. Okay. Who comes first? I hear you. I hear you.
I think it's important too, as we take one more minute for the graphic. I think it's one more minute. I think it's important to note that a lot of this has been discussed on. I found this graphic on Facebook, but this has been a topic of discussion prior to Facebook, prior to social media. There has been this question about who comes first in the relationship, and as we're going to learn tonight, as we start to get into this discussion, this is a needed conversation, you guys, because this is an undercurrent that exists in a lot of marriages. And
Really?
yes, Pastor Will, and people don't know why certain things are happening It's because this undercurrent exists, Pastor Will.
Oh, undercurrent. I like the word. I like the two words, undercurrent. Okay, okay.
Yes. Oh, somebody said it's gonna be good. Okay.
I was kind of digging the graphic though. I was kind of. You got any more graphics?
Yes, I got.
All
Yes.
right, man. We need to increase our graphic library on dating God's way. Now I see it. Now we need more graphics. Put it back up there, Pastor E.
Okay, I got you. I'm coming right now.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So the
Graphic.
question,
You,
you like the graphic. You like the graphic.
you
Who
like
comes first? Yes. Oh, somebody can testify. I see, whoa, we got some testifying going on. Hallelujah.
so like back in the day, it used to be a comedy duo, and they used to do the joke about who comes first, what's on second. I don't know who's on third or something like that. And they just keep asking the question, but who's on first? And so when we talk about who's on first, I think about that skit, that it's a classic comedic skit. Maybe I should share that graphic. No, I'm just kidding. Um, okay, so all right, so let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Who's coming first tonight?
Yeah. So, when we're talking about this, let's jump in. We're talking about this, Pastor Will. We're talking about it from the perspective of relationship perspective, but also the perspective of not just when you get married, but I think this perspective has to come before marriage because it has to come before marriage because these are the types of things that can derail a relationship.
Wait a minute. So somebody's got to come first. I got to make a decision before I say I do.
You got to make a decision because
Oh,
if no decision is made,
somebody tripping.
it's going to show up later. It's
Oh,
going to show up later. And it does show up later. You can see this undercurrent riding in relationships, and people don't even know it's there, Pastor Will.
oh my goodness. Before I say I do, though,
Before you say I do.
before I commit, I have to make a decision into an unknown future before I commit to a future that's unknown. Oh,
That's correct.
that was deep. That was for somebody. That was for you. That was for you.
Yes, and yes. And because that often that commitment isn't made first, then what happens when the commitment isn't made first, then you find that this question actually keeps coming up in the relationship. Because things are going to happen where this question is going to have to be answered.
It keeps coming up in many ways, I'll say. Let me add,
Yes.
It keeps coming up in many ways, forms, and fashions.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
So, this is an interesting conversation for me and Pastor Will because, as you guys know, I talk about this all the time. Pastor Will is an absolute mama's boy for sure. My husband is a mama's boy for sure. And so when we get into this topic, I think it's interesting. We don't have the dynamic of having a baby mom in our situation.
Yeah.
But when you look at this chart of 4 people, we have to add in the baby mom perspective because a lot of people now have children prior to getting married, right? And we know that in our audience, we're going to have that, right? That we're going to have some people that are in this type of construct, right?
Single parents. Yes.
Single parents, right? Where there was either a family before or there were children before, right? And so when we talk about this, who comes first, it really is, about having the, if we were just to jump straight to the Bible, then this would kind of be answered. But we want to have some conversation first because what about situations where, it's like, well, we're holding the child harmless. The child didn't ask, to get into these one of these 4 boxes, but now the kid is in one of these 4 boxes because daddy got married to somebody else.
Right.
Now I'm gonna say that I'm gonna speak before I speak from a white perspective. I'm gonna speak from a child perspective and say that was very hard for me as a child. I was on in this triangle as a child, and I was in the daughter box. So I was in the daughter box, and you had my mom. If you watching tonight, hey mom, my mom was in the baby mama box because my father had a new wife and family. And so this question from another perspective, from the child perspective, at that time being a child, I could never understand this dynamic here. This wasn't even something that I could conceive of. So when we're having this conversation, I know we want to jump right to the relationship component, but we have to remember the complexities when we're talking about the 2 people in the bottom box. That this is not an exclusionary exercise, but it's talking about who's primary and then how to navigate in these relationships. That's kind of what we're talking about and discussing tonight. What you think about that, Pastor Will?
Yeah, discussion also comes out of a place that I was, on my timeline, and somebody, one of my Facebook friends, in their timeline, they kind of asked this question also, it was this video shown, and it was about, who comes first,
Okay.
who comes first. But I'm sorry. So I was trying to find that scroll, but I couldn't find it. But what was your last question? One more time.
Yeah, I was just stating that this is not about excluding anyone. So this isn't an excluding process. Like we're not talking from the kids have to be excluded, or this person has to be excluded, or that person has to be excluded. We're talking about the primary, where everybody now fits. Now that we have this top box, which is the box that we've made a vow in, this wife and husband box, how do all the other boxes fit into that relationship? We're not talking about excluding a box. We're talking about how they now all fit together and who's the primary.
See, and the funny thing is, like at work, we have what we call, because we have a help desk and we have a ticket queue, and we respond to issues based upon their arrival in the queue, right? And so I can see where choosing who goes first in relationships is based upon who arrived in the queue first.
Oh, so some people are figuring this out about who was here first.
Who was here first? Yeah, the longevity of the relationship, and then who trumps who. It was funny. My goddaughter. She's my oldest goddaughter now. Well, my oldest, I not my yeah, I guess my oldest
goddaughter. She is.
Yeah. So when she was a baby, before me and E had children, when me and E didn't have children yet. But she was a baby, and she spent the night with us, and she wouldn't let Pastor E sleep in the bed while I was in the bed, right? Because she made sure that she came first.
She wanted God Daddy all to herself. She was a little baby.
Little
baby. And that probably lasted with her until she was like over 6 months, y'all. Over 6 months old, that lasted with her. She didn't want anybody, she didn't want me anywhere near him, in the bed, touch him, nothing.
So I can see how like daughters and kids can really tug on those strings of put me first.
because there begins to be a fight for territory. And this is what we must understand, that as we look at these boxes, what happens is people begin to fight for their territory, right? Yeah. Their place in the box. They want to make sure that their territory is not taken. And this is something that I think every couple needs to discuss, whether it's mama, whether it's a baby mama, and if you're going to have children or already have them. This has to be a discussion.
Yeah.
Now, you know, I talked from a child's perspective. There was no way I could understand any of these boxes. And just to be very frank, put all my business out there because I like to be transparent. But the people in my boxes definitely didn't do a good job. They didn't do a good job with boundaries, with discussions, with nothing. So I, you know, as we had this conversation tonight, one of the hopes is that not only will people do better in this area, but also, you know, that this is a healthy conversation to have with your spouse. Like, it's a healthy conversation to have prior to marriage, prior to kids, because if you don't have that conversation, you know, it's really hard when life starts happening. It gets really hard. So, we got a question already, Pastor Will.
Okay.
So the question is this a conversation with everybody? And absolutely not a conversation with everybody. I think that you have to grow in commitment before you ask somebody something like this. We got to have some level of commitment to each other, right? Me and Pastor Will started having this conversation once we knew that we was going to be in it, right? Yeah. Because I'm not about to ask him to make me come before his mama before we are engaged, like we are on the way to marriage. There's no reason to have the conversation yet.
I'm sorry, if you would have asked me that before we was engaged, my mind would have been to, oh man, you after me for insurance money.
Correct. Yeah, it's not an appropriate question if we're not moving towards marriage.
Yeah.
This is right, because I do think that sometimes women want men to answer this question before he's committed. Yeah. Before he sees you as the future. And you can't ask this question before that time.
Because that becomes an immediate threat to our living, to our to how we do things. That becomes an immediate threat to how I spend my personal time. If you come in off the bat asking, am I first? Am I going to be first? So you mean to tell me that I've been playing basketball, football, baseball, all of my spare time with my mom, with my family, whatever, and you just come in demanding all that time that I put everywhere else, and all of a sudden you just want all this time right off the bat? Yeah, that conversation can't happen right away.
And I want to say this, that's a good point that you're making, Pastor Will, because whoever comes into a relationship before there is commitment, asking you to give up things is a red flag anyway. So let me just put that out there. Wow. It's a red flag for somebody.
We throwing
a red flag tonight. We putting flags on the play tonight, Pastor Will. It's a red flag for someone to ask you to give up something that you're committed to, and they haven't even made a commitment to you yet.
Ouch.
Oh, you go to church too much. Oh, you got this going on too much. You got to go to work too much. I may do all those things too much, but right now we don't have no commitment. So that shouldn't even be a conversation because there is no commitment.
Right.
The red flag comes in is that you already want me to change my life when we haven't decided to do life together.
Yeah. Changing my life when we haven't made a decision to do life together.
So this conversation is a conversation of when we decide to do life together, then we can have commitment conversations, right? You can't come in. If you're a single mom, you can't come in asking me to give up my children and you ain't even made no commitment to my children. Right? If you are in a single mom status, You can't, some man can't come into your life, vice versa. A woman come into your life telling you to put your child second when there has not been a commitment first.
Yeah.
A long term, and me and Pastor Will call an eternal commitment.
You know, one of my good friends, one of my great friends, during his dating season, he was telling me about somewhat about this, about how a young lady came into his situation, and she wanted to be forefront of his life, but he had he have so many other things. She came in. I think she came in prematurely, too much. She was too much too soon.
Yeah, she already trying to rearrange the boxes, and she
Yeah,
don't even fit in one yet.
yeah, and I talk because and I talk because you're a good man. You are the definition of the good man.
Go
You need a good man. And I was like, yeah, you a good man. You got the car, you got the truck, you got the house. You seem to be living a life. You're a good man. So so because of that, you know, they wanted to be a part of that. But instead of approaching it like a part of that, it seemed like they approached it like they wanted to be in front of that,
Yeah.
in front of what you built.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think one of the things from a wisdom perspective, because we know from a Proverbs perspective, all that get understanding, right? And wisdom is the principal thing, is that, I do think that it's important to have the maturity to understand that some of these relationships were first, right? And how I then approach this conversation is not just going directly to I'm the wife, I come first, okay, or I'm the husband, I come first. But this, I come into this conversation from the standpoint of gaining understanding first. Now let me tell you how I did this, y'all. So I knew Pastor Willie was a mama's boy, and one of the things that
You go back
I
to
knew,
me.
yes, I knew that coming into this situation, this was going to have to be a sensitive conversation, right? This was not something we just going to jump into, but we needed to build, right? And I knew we needed to build a life together, and I knew that some of these conversations we was going to have them, right? And I knew it's going to be a hard conversation. But the thing that I think that really helped us to have this hard conversation was seeing the value. And so the people in these boxes have value in that person's life, right? And trying to just come in and tear out a box is not the role that a wife or a soon to be wife should play, right?
Yeah.
The role of a wife or a soon to be wife is to really be a bridge type of person, not a person that come in and demolish everything. And a lot of women take that approach, a lot of men as well, that they come into the relationship trying to demolish the boxes, right? I'm gonna make sure nobody don't come before me. I'm gonna make sure nothing don't come before me, right? And that approach gets you nowhere, right? It really makes the person that you're in a relationship with begin to retreat, right? So these boxes, they're not to be torn down. That's not the purpose of you getting to marry somebody, that now you become the judge and jury, that you will start breaking down boxes. That's the wrong approach.
Yeah, just don't tear up boxes. And you just ripped into that one. Don't tear up boxes. I like that. I like that.
Like that, Pastor Will?
I like that. Yeah, yeah. Don't come in and destroying the structure that has already been set and laid out. Understand that my first role is to complement who you are.
Yeah.
Male or female. Is when I come into this relationship, I come in as a compliment, right? I don't try to be friends with everybody, but I come in to compliment you. If you know, if you're cool, then I'm cool, then we're cool. I don't know.
Ooh, Pastor Will, you and these random songs. You know, I also realized the benefit of the relationships, right? That, the fact that Pastor Will was so, close with his mom was a representation of how he was going to treat me. So I didn't try to just look at this, that, or the other. He a mama's boy. I don't know if I want to date this, that, and the other. I looked at the complimentary side of that too, of like how he's going to treat me as a wife. So I think that's an important point too. If you watch how a person treats their children, how they treat their mother, it should be some qualities that you see that you can speak to, that you can affirm, that helps you instead of tearing down boxes, solidify those boxes. That's really what you want to do, is solidify those boxes so that your place has nothing to do with those other boxes. Because the role of the spouse is different than them all. Okay? The role of the spouse is different than all the other boxes. So there doesn't have to be a competing with the other boxes. Okay? Shouldn't have to be a competing with the other boxes if we all know our place. Now, who has to know the place? The wife and the husband have to know the place of the other three boxes. The husband and the wife, even if the other three boxes get out of hand, as long as the wife and the husband know the place of the other three boxes, it's okay. Because I know my place. Hey, and that's right there. I know my place.
I know my place. No competing with the boxes.
I don't have to compete with the other boxes when I know my place. When the husband and the wife are clear on the place of the other boxes, then we don't have to fight in the boxes. Yeah?
Yeah. When you know, yeah, you said it. I mean, I'm just going to repeat what you said. Yeah, but when you know your place, when both of you are understand your place, because understand, like, in this box, or there is another box that's you. So there are five. There become five boxes, especially to a guy. To a guy, there becomes five boxes within all these boxes, right? Within on the in this big box is another box.
Yeah,
included, and so you have to understand, like you said, you're not competing with the other four, but you know your place. But it's also up for the man to also understand, and I'm sure we're going to get into this, but understand, what does first mean? What does being first mean?
Yeah, we definitely gonna get into that in a few minutes. Before we get into that, though, Pastor Will, about what being first means, let's talk about the children dynamic a little bit, because we talked about the mom dynamic, but the children dynamic, right? And I think this is an important one to talk about. When we started having kids, I remember, so we had our first child after 4 years of marriage. We had our first child, and what happened in the children dynamic was, we started having conversations before we had children. We started having conversations about how we were going to set up our family dynamic, right? Where were the children going to come in, right? Because frankly, we had a good thing going, like we get all our date nights and all our, little trips, and just get in the car. That was one of the things I used to love that we did when we was, first married, when we just get in the car and we just ride somewhere. We didn't know where we was going. Pastor Will would pick up a map, y'all. This is back in 2000, 2001. Pick up a map. We just get on the road.
Oh, I didn't use no map. We just got lost.
We got lost, but one time I remember we had to get a map maybe 2 or 3 times, Pastor Will. You got lost. Anyway, I ain't gonna tell on them too much tonight, y'all, but we had to stop and get a map a couple times, but didn't make no difference. I love those days that we had, right? But we knew that that dynamic was going to change because once we added in children, we knew they were going to need a lot of things. This is true, right? And so one of the conversations we had was that, you know, we would always come first. And this coming first meant that the children, while we would make sure that their needs were met, we would also always make sure our needs was met as a couple, not as parents. Yeah. And so this children dynamic was very important conversation that we had because this meant that we were committing to dating. We were committing to the couple, not the parents, right? That the parents was something that we were going to partner together to do, but that we couldn't be good parents if we weren't a good couple.
Yeah.
We couldn't be good parents if we weren't good. And so that was something that we discussed. And when we started having kids, we had them back to back. So that was crazy. And this conversation that we had, I think really allowed us to keep the perspective once the children came that we still come first, right? Even though we had to go through breastfeeding, we had to go through, you know, all of these different stages of children, right? From toddlers to tearing up this house to all of the things we had to go through, that perspective really kept us solid so we could parent better. And I think that children dynamic is something that has to be discussed. Who comes first? How do we keep the children in their place? Because what happened was, Pastor Willie, talk about this. What happened was them little jokers be trying to get in between you. Now we love them children, but the children will definitely try to come between the parents, right? Whether it is the two children you birthed or children outside, that's a real dynamic that exists, that the children try to manipulate the parents and will try to get it up in that marriage. So this conversation has to happen.
Yeah, it's also another thing of teaching the children or living a life in front of the children that they know that for us that we comes first, right? Somehow, you know, the kids know that mom and dad, they know where they are in the in the order of the family dynamic.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that they were shunned. They were never shunned. They were always shown the respect and the love, you know, that we could offer and that we can give, that we are able to offer, that we are able to give. And they know that they are really top priority in our lives. Yes. But they also understand through me and mom's interaction that our energy, we put a lot of energy, effort in building our union, right? And so, so it's somewhat complex, but it's the reality, because at the end of the day, they're going to go off to college, and it's just going to be me and mom here alone.
That's it.
And I don't want to be with mom and not knew who she was for the past 16, 17 years, because we put all our energy in putting our kids first.
Yeah. And you know what happened too in our relationship dynamic is, I remember my little boy, he asked, when he was smaller, he asked, why you and daddy always got to go on a date? You know, we had a specific date night. And he said, why y'all always got to go on a date, right? And, you know, I guess he was like 5 or 6 at this time. And he saw us, you know, always going out on our date night. And so when he asked about why we always going out on a date, that question continued as he got older. Because then we started doing, as the boys got older, we started doing staycations. We started going away for like a little weekend. So things grew as the boys grew. And so the questions grew. And what happened was, you know, we were able to then have the conversation of the family dynamic. We were able to share with the kids that our relationship has to be a top priority in this, right? And I mean, I had date days with the boys as well. I had spent time with them, take them to the movies, whatever. But they saw that, and I think that helped too with showing them that they couldn't get in between this.
And we're getting a lot of questions. Woo.
Yeah, but questions coming. Go ahead, keep going.
But no, I was watching Carl Winslow because knock knock, hint hint. When you get like 40 and stuff, you watch old shows.
Go ahead.
So I was watching Family Matters the other day, and Carl Winslow mom, she got a new love. Right, she got a new love, and here's Carl now, like Eddie and the other siblings, they got to be like almost 20 years old, and Carl is up in arms because now mom got somebody new coming around,
right?
And and I had to think about that. Because my mom, their anniversary just passed on yesterday. But I had to think about that, and my mom is looking, and I had to think about that, and like, what if somebody found interest in my mom?
Woo!
and I would no longer be the. I'm not the baby. I'm the middle boy, but I'm still the baby boy.
Whew, y'all right? Help me, y'all. Yeah.
But at the same time, I had to think about, I had to put some forethought into this because my mom is a gorgeous lady.
That's right.
So I had to think about this, like what, I would be okay. I have to force myself to be okay with it because I can't be the first.
That's correct.
Right?
Yes, got to know your place.
But understand that it don't take a place out of her heart for me.
That's correct. Yes.
Right?
Yeah. You have a place. It's just not the place. That's true.
That's it.
Yes, that is true.
And that no matter what level, I could never have the place.
Yeah.
Never. Because I'm in the place of your heart and you in the place of my heart.
That's right. The wife and the husband is the only people that become one.
Yes.
At some point, the kids got to go.
Yes.
So the wife and the husband are the only relationship that we're talking about in these boxes where there is a oneness that happens.
Yes, but I'm gonna make sure he come caked up. I mean, he gonna have to come caked up.
Pastor Will. Mm-hmm. Let's get to these questions. Let's get to these questions.
Oh, Lord.
All right. So how does this connect to the scripture that tells a man to forsake all others and cleave to his wife, or does it connect?
Yeah.
Absolutely connects.
Absolutely connect. That's what we're talking about. We talked about leave and cleave, right?
Yes.
But not only leave and cleave, but this is leave and cleave and put your wife at the forefront.
Yes. Because a lot of people leave and cleave, but don't prioritize the spouse.
That's it, E. That's it.
A lot of people can do the leaving and cleaving, but they do not prioritize the spouse over other people and other things. So it has to be not just the leave and cleave, but also a prioritization of the spouse that has to happen. And that's what we're talking about tonight. The step beyond leaving and cleaving. Now we got to prioritize.
And let me say it like this, especially like before my mom did become a widow, there were times where I was like, I'm going over there to whatever, and E but we got this going on, and we got that going on, or we doing this, or we doing that. And part of that prioritization was staying with my wife because she's at the forefront. It's the hard decisions. It's the decisions that feel like that tear you up, that really tear you apart. One of the hardest decisions I made one year was, I think we went to Florida for a vacation during family reunion time. Oh, I was torn. but I ain't married. But I didn't marry my family. I married E. And so that had to be at the forefront of that my relationship, my marriage had to take priority over everything else, and just pray that everything else went well at the family reunion and I can see everybody next year.
That's it. Yeah. What about blended families? So I
Yeah.
think, yeah, I think, that's why we got the 4 boxes tonight, because I think we need to think, the realization that blended families do exist. And so, when we're talking from a godly perspective, I think it's remembering that there has to be a prioritization of the spouse, but also there has to be an engagement and an embracing of the children, right? Because, especially because of the circumstances in which, evolve around the children, there needs to be consideration for the children in a different way in a blended situation. I think that's a definite. While we don't have a blended family, growing up, I had the blended I lived in the blended family dynamic. My in my primary household, there was a blended family dynamic happening. And I will say that one of the things that really, with my family, one of the things that really helped is the conversation that continually happened. I heard my grandmother have outright conversations with everybody about how everything was going to work. And that really helped in our family dynamic, right? My grandfather, he was not my biological grandfather, meaning he was not my mom's biological father. And so I grew up in a blended situation. And one of the things that I loved that my grandmother did was she was always, we're not going to live in a step dynamic, right? We're not going to live like stepchildren, this, that, or whatever. Those are conversations she had with my grandfather. And she made sure that that was lived out with her words. She could not control all the players in it, because there were some other players in the boxes. She could not control all the players in it, but what she could control was her approach in it. And I did value that.
It's good.
So yeah, I think, even in blended families, there has to be the prioritization of the spouse and the marriage relationship, but there has to be special considerations for the children. That is a must. And those things have to be articulated consistently.
Yeah, and I can see that, especially if, I mean, I'm not speaking out of experience here, but I can see that even if the single mom or the single dad, they've been a single parent for quite a time, quite amount of years or whatever, and then all of a sudden somebody come in and be the husband or the wife that interrupts that ecosystem.
Yeah.
And so I can see where a lot of talks have to happen, a lot of understanding that a kid is not going to understand off the bat, right? But
that's correct.
It's going to be a lot of understanding and getting the family to form as a family unit, and
Yeah.
then and with those things in place of knowing that the couple come first, to continue to grow the family, and
Yeah.
I've seen it done. I've seen it done successfully.
Yes, I've seen it done successfully as well. And frankly, I've lived through some successes and some failures with this. So look, I'm a witness that when it's done bad, it can hurt everybody involved, and the parts of it that are done right can be beneficial for everybody involved. So yes, definitely. What if the children are coming along as the relationship starts and develops? Do you have this convo once we get engaged? I think that once you know that you're moving towards engagement, that's a good time to have it. Things are really intensifying and getting serious. I think, a little bit before engagement, if possible, to start having the conversation, especially when you already have children. I think it's important to start start talking early, right? Because you need to know there should be some things that you just getting to know how that person feels about children, how that person, as Miss Frederica told us in her situation, how the person feels about children. But then, yes, I do think that you have to start having the conversation, and in engagement, the conversation is at another level. That this is a conversation now of how is this going to look? What is our commitment? What is your commitment? What is my commitment to the children as well, and not just the relationship?
It's those stages of dating where first you start off as friends, and then you evolve into I really like this person, and then you go into the exclusivity of the relationship where I'm not dating, I'm not seeing nobody else, you're not seeing nobody else, and then as you begin getting closer, then you have to start having these conversations when they start getting comfortable about being around the kids, seeing the kids more frequent, or your kids seeing them, and they really become a part of what you do and how you do things, and so and then you need to start having those conversations with the kids about who this person is.
Yeah.
And start really seeing what your kids' trust level is like. Seeing what how your kids feel around this person.
Yeah. Comfort level.
Yeah, because kids has I was just telling Edith that my son is really operates in a high level of the supernatural.
Oh yes, definitely prophetic for sure.
And we really need to start listening to what he be saying. Because if we would have listened to what he was saying, we wouldn't have closed down church these past 2 Sundays.
Well, not this last Sunday for sure. He was adamant about that one.
But we have to listen to our kids when they are talking.
That's correct. One of the things that I really value that my mom did is she did not date around me. So growing up, my mom didn't date around me. I didn't meet her guy friends until it was a relationship, and they were like in a long-term relationship, right? And I really value that because I wasn't just exposed to anybody. And so I do think that that was something that I took away as a child. I took away in my growing up that like there is value on holding tight, like don't give away everything, and so I think that that's a value. So let's get into our points tonight about who comes first, Pastor Will. Let's get into our takeaways from tonight's conversation. Okay. Number one, the marriage always comes first. That's the answer. The marriage always comes first. It's biblical. It's biblical in the sense of when a man marries a woman, as Brother Cavante said, he leaves his mother and father. So we know that from a biblical perspective that these relationships, that the man leaves, okay? The woman leaves. And so the marriage always comes first. But number two, we learned tonight that we're not talking about the exclusion of other relationships, but prioritizing the marriage first. So we're not talking about excluding everybody else, but we're talking about prioritizing the marriage. So not only does the marriage come first, but the marriage is the priority. It must be lifted up as the priority above other relationships, okay? It must be lifted up as the priority. And in our prioritizing marriage, we prioritize the marriages first. Number three, we define the other roles, right? After we have prioritized the marriage, now we can define the other roles. Where does everybody else come in at? Okay? That's healthy conversation to have with your spouse. We now define the other roles. Where does everybody else come in at? Where these kids come in at? Where these parents come in at? Okay, if there is a baby mother or baby father, where they come in at? Because just because now you've gotten married, you know, if you already have children, or if you already have a situation, that baby mother, baby father ain't going away. So we have to define the roles. Wisdom says, I must define the roles to make sure nobody get out of pocket. Okay, nobody start getting out their box, getting into our box. And to avoid that, we have to define the roles. And then the last point that I think we're lifting up tonight is this needs to be a premarital conversation. Yes. A premarital conversation, so that this undercurrent doesn't live throughout the life of your marriage. So that this undercurrent doesn't sweep your marriage under. That you don't get swept under because you haven't made clear definition. So I think, you know, our last point is this conversation should happen premarital. If you are already married and it hasn't happened yet, and you see some stuff sweeping in and through your marriage, please have the conversation. Have the conversation now. It's not too late to have the conversation, because you do not want this undercurrent sweeping over your marriage and taking it under.
You know, one of the things that really helped us was our premarital counseling.
Yeah.
We didn't have many, but they were substantial. They had really
We had like 6.
huh?
We had like 6.
Okay, yeah, but one of them was about putting your relationship first beyond your children. And me and Eve, we was like, what? That you got to be crazy. That sounds crazy. What you mean put ourselves first before kids? Like, kids can't fend for themselves. They need to be put first. But in this in this totality, it was the thing which I mentioned earlier, that the kids will grow up and the kids will leave. And if you haven't invested in your relationship, you will not get any results out of it at the end, right?
Yeah.
And so if you plan on loving your spouse, if you plan on loving them, then you have to invest the time and effort in the relationship beyond the baby mama, beyond the daughter, beyond the mom. So yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah. It's a big investment.
It is.
A big investment. Yeah.
Big investment. Okay.
Yeah. That's a good point, Pastor Will. It's taking a big investment in the marriage. And so I think, you know, this is a great talk we had tonight about who comes first. And I laughed when Pastor Willie said that, because in the beginning we was cracking up, like, who's talking about the kids gonna come first? The kids always come first. We cracked up about that. But now that our kids are 15 and 16, right, we really see the fruit of this conversation that we're now having. Like, we can see the fruit of the investment that we made, and doing it God's way. And so that's what we're talking about tonight, guys. We're talking about doing it God's way. And we hope that you glean some biblical, spiritual encouragement to do this God's way, so that you prioritize marriage, and also you prioritize the union, the commitment that you made before God, and your marriage don't get swept up in them currents. Yes. The mom currents, baby mama currents, and daughter current. Oh, somebody said, oh no, it's over already. That hour be going quick, don't it? They be going quick. That hour be going real quick. Yeah. The hour comes quick. Yeah. So we really appreciate all the questions and comments tonight. And somebody asked a question about if we could talk about leave or cleave, Pastor Will. And maybe that's another topic that we can do about in one of the weeks Oh man. It was mixed.
Now I think about that leave and cleave, and I understand and I get the revelation, but why you just tell the man to leave and cleave though? Like,
Yeah, you know why?
why is it just an instruction for the man to leave and cleave?
Yeah, because he's supposed to be the head. He's supposed to be the head of the household.
Yeah, it ain't tell the woman to leave or cleave. It just say, hey man, leave or cleave.
Right, because he got to go get the wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. He has the responsibility. Sorry. That's
Tough.
it.
So tough being the man.
Oh boy.
but we're gonna talk about that, and we'll break that down in about the leave and cleave, and then he tells the man to also love your wife just as Christ loved the church.
Loved the church, yeah.
Like, what does finding a man that's willing to love his wife as much as Christ loved the church? What does that look like?
What does that look like? And what does it look like? Because he then turns around and tells the woman to submit to her husband. So when we get into that leave and cleave, we're going to get into that submission, loving that wife like Christ loved the church. It's going to be good, y'all.
And look how deep Christ loved the church. Like he gave his life.
Woo!
So yeah, that's heavy.
Yeah, we're going to get into it though. One of these weeks coming up. Pastor Will, you had a preview for next week, Dan. What are we going to talk about next week?
So next week, we're going to talk about what I forgot about.
You forgot it already?
Yeah, what I forget about. We're going to talk.
And I did not write it down.
Okay, so let me think about the conversation that we were having. I don't remember.
Oh, well, we'll find out what we're talking about next week, guys. If not, we'll be talking about leaving Cleave next week. If Pastor Will don't come back to Pastor Will remembers. But yeah, we had a great time with you guys on tonight. Remember, the husband and the wife always come first. I had some other things I would say about that, but I'm gonna leave that. Woo! I won't say that on the World Wide Web. But yes, the wife come first. Dating God's way.
Bye. Love you guys.
Dating God's way. Dating God's way. Hey, Chanel. Hey. Dating God's way.
I saw my friend Shalita joined us tonight from around the 22nd Street.
Dating God's way.
Kishana.
Hey, y'all.
Tiana.
Dating God's way. Love y'all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.